Hi. Thank you guys all for turning your clocks ahead and being here.
Good morning and welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, thank you for coming out on a Sunday daylight savings time morning. I want to welcome everyone to our panel, The New Rules of Social Stardom. So thank you for being here, and just know that we will be taking questions from the audience about 45 minutes into the panel. We have our microphone set up, so start thinking. I'm sure you'll be engaged on social media before that. I want to thank Kerry as well. When we were planning this panel and conversation, I couldn't think of anyone we'd want to have this conversation with more than you. And all you have to do is look at Kerry's social feeds to know that you're probably one of the busiest people in Hollywood. You're also a mother of a 2-year-old, so that you've carved out time to be with us this morning means so much, so thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You are a bona fide social media star, and you dominate 3 platforms. I'm sure all of you have checked out her social media feeds, but I want to give you a sense of the landscape of what Kerry has been doing on social media. So, first of all, Facebook. Yesterday I went on Facebook and she was at 4,900,000. This morning you're at 4.1 million likes. And 96,000.
You're clapping for yourselves. So you're welcome to clap for yourselves. It's a community.
96,000 people were talking about your Facebook page this morning. I don't know what they were saying, but they were talking about it.
Y'all should have been in church. That's what I'm saying. I don't know why everyone's talking about me.
You joined Twitter in October 2010, and you have 3,860,000 followers. You only follow 484 other accounts. I'm happy to say
That's a lot.
You follow InStyle.
I do.
You follow others like Cory Booker, Barbara Streisand, and Prada.
Prada or nada, that's my theme.
Since October 2010, you have liked 27 other tweets. But you've posted over 22,000 times. But you can't even quantify the interactivity you've had during your live tweets. You pretty much own live tweeting with your scandal live tweets. And then, of course, there's Instagram. Your first post was 191 weeks ago. For those of you who don't want to do the math, that puts us at the summer of 2012. Wow. I don't know if you were in Rome.
I was.
But you posted a picture of the Colosseum, which I think was also an ode to gladiators.
It was.
From Scandal.
It was.
You now have 2,400,000 followers, and you follow 0 accounts. But you have posted 875 times. The last selfie you posted, and you do post selfies,
I do.
was with you and Jennifer Garner at the Oscars, and the hashtag was Neutrogena Sisters. It got 54,000 likes and 300 comments, all of which were positive.
She's super popular.
Are we missing any platforms?
No, I mean, I just started periscoping, which is sort of, it is absorbed within those other platforms. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so you rule.
There are much bigger social media stars, but I am definitely a part of this community.
How did, you are an early adopter. I mean, October 2010 for a celebrity on Twitter is pretty early. You have very high engagement and you're really engaged. Can you tell us a little bit about why you embarked on social media, and was the intent to go on as a consumer? Was the intent to round out your PR strategy? What was the thinking?
I would say my entry into social media was a lot like my entry into fashion, which I didn't grow up really thinking about fashion or being interested in fashion, but I've shared this in interviews in the past. I started noticing that there were certain other actresses who were getting considered for roles because they had more of a presence on red carpets. And I thought, okay, this is now an extension of what I do. This is part of my personal marketing brand. So I better start learning about fashion. And maybe because I came to it later in life, I then fell in love, and it's become a personal passion as much as it's a professional commitment. But Social media began for me in the same way. It wasn't as a consumer, it wasn't because I wanted to follow somebody else on Twitter, but I thought, there are certain companies that I work with, for example, Movado. This is my 10th year working as an ambassador for Movado watches, and I also had a movie coming out that I was really proud of and really excited about, and I knew that it was going to require more of a grassroots push. It was a movie called For Colored Girls, based on the play by Ntozake Shange. And so I knew that it was going to be a film that really required reaching out to community in a different kind of way. And so one of my best friends from high school actually had been working at Viacom, running social media for one of their channels, and was starting her own consulting company in social media. Her name is Allison Peters. She is KW Crew, for those of you who follow me on Twitter or Instagram. And she sort of walked me through it.
And did you have any pitfalls in the beginning, or have you had any pitfalls along the way? Has it been pretty much smooth sailing? Because it looks like you are pretty smooth when it comes to social media.
No, I mean, it's always been, I mentioned to you, I knew from the beginning that I didn't want to talk too much about my personal life. That was a decision that I had made in my larger career around media and press, because I had a period of being very open with my personal life and talking about relationships on red carpets and in articles, and I decided that didn't really work for me, so I pulled back. And so when I entered social media, I kind of brought that wisdom with me, and it's just for me. I have no judgment about how other people engage on social media. I sometimes, honestly, am a little envious, but that's what works for me, big picture. And no, I mean, in the beginning, when I think back, and people who have been following me for 6 years, God bless you and thank you, first of all. But I remember I totally was in the beginning like a good morning, everybody, good night, everybody. Like everybody was so, I was so excited about having community. I don't really send good morning tweets anymore, although I should.
Are you conscious, though, of the content mix? So are you, if not necessarily pre-planning posts, are you thinking, okay, well, today I posted a great picture of me in a beautiful dress. Tomorrow I should probably post something more substantive. Or I posted something about social action, and that was a heated debate on my comments. Tomorrow I'm going to say, good morning, everyone.
Right.
Or are you just spontaneous and opportunistic based on your life?
For me, the key to everything in social media, for me, in order for it to feel rewarding, is authenticity. So I have made it a real commitment that my engagement in social is me, that it reflects me, that it is, as much as possible, the truth of what I'm thinking and feeling and liking, because I think honestly, because I don't have the energy to maintain a false identity on all these platforms. Like, it would drive me crazy. I'm just not, I wouldn't be able to manipulate myself that well. So I want to stay true to who I am. So that being said, I think there is a real organic element to it. There are certain things that get planned ahead of time, like I have a film coming out next month on HBO, Confirmation, and that has a strategy to it. There's a way that I'm in communication with HBO and in communication with Allison Peters on how we want to engage big picture so that everybody feels like the bases are covered. But at the same time, I'm also just going to do what feels good to me. Like last weekend, I was in Boston with the real Anita Hill. The movie is about the hearings between Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas, and so I just tweeted what felt right on the day because I was with her. That didn't fit into a traditional strategy. So I think there's a balance. And when you talk about the diversity of interest in my tweets, I think that's just because I'm a really curious person and I really do care. I won't say as much, but I'm as interested in what just walked at Paris Fashion Week as I am in Hillary. So I just have a lot of interest, and I try to speak to all of those interests.
Speaking of fashion, for those of you who are tweeting, posting today, right now, Kerry is wearing Dolce & Gabbana.
I am.
So,
I am. And
if you were
Louboutin shoes.
And Louboutin, and she had a Ferragamo bag. So if you are waiting on the credit,
Done.
That is the credit. Are we good? We're done. We're good. We're good. Right? Okay. That is important. Believe me, I know. You talk a little bit of
Says the man behind look of the day.
right. The credit is important. So you talk about KW Crew, and I want to give you a lot of props because the authorship is something that you've been really careful about delineating in your posts. And you know, as consumers, we see so many celebrities posting, and you wonder, who is this coming from? Is it the person? Are they aware of what's even happening on their accounts? How does that work? So do you see what's posted under the KW Crew authorship before it goes up, or do you just say, you know what, I trust you? Can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Sure. I mostly tweet all my own stuff, but there are occasionally tweets that are signed KW Crew, and that's stuff that comes from Allison Peters. And every single tweet that comes out from KW Crew is approved by me. So I'll get an email the night before or the morning of saying, I was thinking about posting these things, and I will say no or yes, or I like that, but that should come from me. So we're in communication about it. There's nothing that goes up that doesn't have my approval. Allison also knows me really well, so it's a pretty easy dialogue. But also, there are times when I think how KW Crew came to be was actually because there are certain things that I don't engage in that I knew my community would want to. The best example I can think of is a review. So I never read reviews for anything that I'm in. I don't find it useful for me creatively to hear about what people didn't like about me. But occasionally there are good reviews, but I don't read any reviews because I feel like if you give value to the really good ones, then you kind of are gonna give value to the bad ones. Allison does read reviews, so when she comes across something that she thinks is great, she posts it because she wants my community to have access to that. So I don't have to deal with it, but she does, and then I feel like we're still keeping the community in the loop with the things that are happening despite my selfish desire to protect my artistry.
So what are you engaging with as a consumer? What is your social media daily diet? Are you on your phone all the time from the moment you get up to the moment you go to bed, or are you just kind of checking in here and there? And how do you feel like your social media activity is affecting the way in which you're perceiving the news about not just you and your industry, but the things that matter most to you?
Yeah, I do. I think every time I get breaking news, it's definitely on social media. It's not from an alert that comes into my inbox. I'm much more connected to social media. I usually check it in the hair and makeup chair in the morning. And then depending on the day, depending on how hard my scenes are or what I'm doing or what's going on with my family, I don't have kind of rules about how I do it, but like there are certain scenes that require a level of focus for me. This is actually something I learned working with Tarantino because he doesn't allow any technology on set. And so I still, now even on Scandal, there are certain days that I feel like this scene really requires 150% of me, so my phone has to stay in my trailer. And so those are the days that I won't be engaged for 10 hours. And there are other days where it's a big debate scene and it doesn't require 150%, it requires 100. But then I might have the phone at my chair and I will check it occasionally.
Because I would imagine there are times, like all of us, when you engage in social media, you see something either that tickles you or interests you or infuriates you.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the conversation you had with Robin Roberts on the Oscar red carpet, because it speaks to how active.
Can I just say something, because I don't want people to worry, this is so weird, this may not have crossed anybody's mind, but just so you know, when I leave my phone in my trailer, people close to me have the number of the AD on set if there's an emergency. Like if there's an emergency in my family, for example, somebody knows how to reach me. Okay. I don't want you to think I'm like ignoring the other things in life just because I want to focus on my scene. Okay.
That was my next question. Who's monitoring your phone?
My AD's like, your nanny wanted to know? I'm like, thanks. Okay.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. I'm thinking though about how you probably are provoked, and so much of it that you see on social media is so evocative. And you did talk to Robin Roberts on the red carpet about how you want to have an active voice in so much of your social action work. And you told her, you know, a lot of people have asked you why you were there that night and the things that you're thinking about. If you look at the history of movements, you say, the history of change, a lot of the voices are needed at the table. You respect and actually admire some of the people who were not there that night, you get it. But for you, you say, I felt like my voice, in my heart, my voice is best used at the table. So given how active you are as an agent of change, you're such a strong advocate for human rights, women's rights, children's rights, civil rights, how do you decide when to enter into the conversation on social media? You could sit all day responding to things you don't agree with. You could seed the conversation. You could promote just the handful of things you've signed on to partner with. How do you decide now is the time to make the biggest impact? People want so badly to use social media in the right way.
Right.
And I'm curious, what is your strategy to do so?
Again, I think a lot of it just comes from what is in my heart, like what moves me, you know, and I follow some extraordinarily smart people. You know, I follow people like Michael Skolnick, who is just a powerhouse in all kinds of movements for change. And when I stay connected to him, or even a friend like John Legend, you know, by us following each other and retweeting each other, you know you can take the conversation to a larger community. And that, for me, a lot of times it's like, what do I come across that stops me in my tracks? And I think, how did I not know that? And then I want to make sure other people have access to that information. I'm thinking about, I think it was last year that I came across something on BuzzFeed that was a collection of images from Russia, from what was going on in the LGBT community there. And I was appalled that I had no idea that this was going on there at the time. And so I retweeted it, and then I feel like it just helps us all be more aware. To me, that's one of the beautiful things about social media, is that the world has become smaller, and we can have global conversations about what's going on in humanity in a different kind of way. So I don't think it's, I don't have like a large strategy for it. I try to just talk about the things that are important to me and that touch my heart.
You've talked also about how you've made the decision as a celebrity to move into this sphere. You're not one of the celebrities who have said, my goodness, I worked so hard to maintain a private life. Why would I post something about my breakfast or invite people into that world? You've made a decision to create a community, and there are strict parameters about what you will and will not talk about. I'm wondering though, do you think that being a celebrity on social media and celebrities who engage in social media have helped dial down the fever for celebrity gossip by giving more of themselves in a strategic way? Or have we created a bigger celebrity media machine by now giving media the opportunity to report on social media?
Yeah. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think, and this is something Reese Witherspoon has talked about a lot, it's a little different for me because I don't talk about my personal life, but for a lot of celebrities, having social media has actually been great in terms of their relationship with the weeklies or with gossip sites, because people say things and you say, that's not true, everybody, just so you know, that's BS. And I'm saying BS because it's Sunday. And so I think in some ways it's been great because people are able to maintain their voice. For me, it's been tricky because, again, sort of like reviews, if I don't talk about my personal life, it means I don't talk about my personal life. That means not only did I not tell you when I was getting married, it also means when somebody has rumors about what's going on in my marriage, I don't refute them because I don't talk about my personal life. So it's tricky to just kind of sit and watch things and go, that's interesting if that's what people think. And I don't, in terms of the larger business of it, I mean, I think it's put the power more in the hands of the individual. You know, in a way, what's happened in social is that everybody can be a celebrity, and everybody can be a critic, and everybody writes an op-ed. Like it's the great democratizer, really. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure where it'll all fall out 20 years from now, 100 years from now, you know?
Let's talk a little bit about everyone being a critic.
Yeah.
So, you know, people have known for a while that I'm going to be coming here to speak with you, and there were a lot of questions people wanted me to ask, but one question that I heard over and over again was, ask her, does she read her comments? Does she read her comments? Does she respond to them? Does she care about them? And we've talked about the Jimmy Kimmel celebrities reading mean tweets, and what I think is so fascinating about that, aside from the fact that it's funny.
It's brilliant.
It's so brilliant because it forces the audience to reconcile this idea that there are live, breathing human beings on the receiving end of what I think most people think are anonymous, veiled, cloaked, nasty comments. So, Kerry, do you read your comments? Do you care? Do you respond? How do you deal with the so-called trolls of the internet?
So I really do not read comments on other platforms. If there's an article in InStyle, for example, or in Variety or wherever, I don't scroll down and read comments. And that's not only for things about me, that's in general. Even if it's an article about Jennifer Lopez, I don't scroll down and read comments because people are just so mean. And I don't want to engage in thinking about, okay, so I don't read comments on other platforms. In my own world, it's a tricky balance. And I, for the most part, stay away from comments, but you know, Twitter is really a conversation. It's not really like you post something and then have comments. So I do occasionally engage with the things that people say. Sometimes I will post something that I specifically know will engender a reaction, and then almost for fun, I read comments. An example would be one of my best friends, Erin Wall, she's also my stylist. She had this adorable picture of her daughter holding the cover of Women's Wear Daily that I was on, and it was a really cute picture of this angelic child holding my cover, and it was really, what she wrote was really sweet, and so I reposted that picture. I knew the moment that I posted that 90% of the comments were gonna be, where's your child? How come we never see your child? Why you gotta post other people's child, but you never wanna show your child? I knew that was gonna happen. I absolutely knew. And so with great joy, I scrolled through and watched everybody complain about where my child is. My child is at home. So those moments, there's another moment, there was one day that I posted a manicure. This is actually one of my favorite moments. I posted this manicure because I thought it was really cute how we had used a purple color in a certain way. Well, people did not like this manicure. People were like,
serious business.
Girl, who did that manicure? They were not okay. And I knew actually, because sometimes Allison will alert me and say like, just so you know, or I don't know what, but I found out. And, but I know that people for the most part know that I try not to engage, but about a week later, I posted a different manicure, and I somehow like referenced the old manicure in the new post, and it made people so happy and like really cracked them up because I have a sense of humor about that kind of thing. Like the fact that you didn't like my manicure, that's not gonna ruin my day. Like, it's a manicure, people. It's not, you know.
Manicure redemption.
Yeah, it was fine. So I also want to be able to have a sense of humor about it. So that, I would say, is I've learned the hard way through time that sometimes engaging is really important. Sometimes I decide whether or not to read comments, quite frankly, depending on how close I am to a therapy appointment. Like, can I handle it? You know, like, can I handle it today? Some days I'm really vulnerable, I'm not gonna go to comments today. Other days I'm feeling a little more like I can wrap my head around it and I engage. Because the truth about comments that I've learned is that comments are not about me. That when somebody comments on something on social media, they are revealing something to me about themselves. If you don't like something that I say or do, that's really you sharing with me who you are. And if you're nasty about it, that's really you sharing with me who you are. So that, you know, how really how I engage with comments is how able am I to give somebody the space to be who they are without letting it impact me? Because that's what I want to do. I want to give people room to have their process.
So it's great.
And I think, you know, for me, I don't get dressed for the red carpet to please everybody. Because if I did that, I would be so effed.
Impossible.
I'm trying to help Queen, not today. It's impossible to make everybody happy, you know? So I don't, when I post something that I wear on the red carpet, I expect that some people aren't gonna like it. That's great. We live in a country where you're, at least today, where you're allowed to have an opinion.
So,
So I try to give people room to have those opinions and try to be compassionate when they don't. And also know, like, when people are lashing out, it's probably more about the day they're having. It's probably more about how they feel about how they look. It's probably, you know, when people are attacking me to feel better about themselves, that's really about their pain, and I don't want to make it my pain, you know?
So at times there are just nasty comments, right? Sometimes people are sharing their opinion with you, and sometimes the comments really are a reflection of what your audience and what your community is thinking and feeling. And I credit the velocity and depth of social media comments for bringing us closer together. And really, it's part of the reason why we're having this conversation, the two of us together.
We've been having it for years.
For years. So we had an experience about a year ago where you had been featured in the magazine twice for Inside Fashion editorial, One Beauty, One Fashion. And then we were really excited to have you on our cover for the first time. It was March of last year, Spring Fashion. And in fact, we had booked you and it had gotten postponed, you were pregnant, and we were waiting and waiting, and we finally had you on the cover. And we published the issue, we posted the cover, you posted the cover, and the social media reaction started to flood in. And the majority of the response was disappointment, anger, and again, the velocity and the quickness and depth of it was immediate. And the response really was that we had not done you right, that the image did not look like you, and that your image appeared to have been lightened. And I credit social media for allowing us to know that this was the response of so many people so quickly. And if it weren't for social media, I wouldn't have been able to check in with you immediately, which we did. We spoke that day. We wouldn't have had the conversation where you shared with me and my team what this means. We wouldn't have then had the conversation with our team about best practices moving forward, about lighting and photography. We wouldn't have had the conversation to then issue a statement to acknowledge this disappointment and pain. And you and I wouldn't have then had a conversation on social media,
right?
Which we did.
It actually makes me very emotional hearing you talk about it, because these feelings of, you know, when people feel like there are cultural dynamics at work that perpetuate ideas of inferiority or less than in several communities, to be able to have those feelings heard, acknowledged, respected, and then incorporated into best practices, that is the beauty of social media. That voices can be heard in that way, and that you had the extraordinary humility and openness to say, can we talk about why this is happening and why this is the response, and that I could put it in a historical, social context, and that we could really move forward so that people felt heard and affirmed and important is everything to me. I mean, that's when I say it's the great democratizer, that it's that kind of ability that social media has to give a voice to the voiceless, to the previously voiceless, is very important. very important. And it's why I think so many of our cultural structures are having to change. It's why inclusivity is no longer, it's why tokenism no longer counts as diversity, is because real inclusivity is about multiple voices at the table. And social media has created a table that is much bigger and much easier to get to.
And social media continues to hold magazines like InStyle accountable, not just in our covers, but in terms of reflection of diversity. And you and I said then, let's continue this conversation. And you really see not only the accountability, but the voices really insisting on the diversity and the broadening of the reflection. And I want to hear from you as well, given that you're a spokesperson, an ambassador and a creative consultant for Neutrogena, an ambassador and a creative consultant now for OPI with your manicures, and for Movado.
The manicure led to a real thing for me, that I now work with OPI. I'm on a journey here with my nails.
You have these, you have these incredible opportunities, right? So we imagine as consumers, if someone is a spokesperson and they have a great social media following, the assumption would be, oh, you're going to post a few things, right? But you are a person of substance with a great passion for social justice. So how do you incorporate who you stand for and what you believe in, and really fold that in with the work that you need to do as a spokesperson? How do you draw those two and dovetail them together? Because whether the company's intent is to have that happen or not, social media will hold you accountable. So how do you go about that and creating that niche for yourself?
I think I learned really early on as an actor that there was something activist about me doing what I do successfully, simply because we live in a world where not everybody gets their stories told. And so because culturally for a long time we have disenfranchised certain people or certain communities, for most of my life, and still today, women aren't considered often the leads of their own stories. If you're a woman actress, you're the accessory, you're the pocketbook to the story. You're not necessarily the story itself. The same is true as a person of color. You're often invited to be in the movie, but you're not the movie. And I felt that as an actor, I wanted to carve out a space where when I was playing those supporting roles, that I brought three-dimensional humanity to those characters so that you really paid attention to them, so that a character like Chenille in Save the Last Dance goes from being a statistic, a teen mom in Chicago, to being a real person that you care about and you think about. And also later on in my career, making choices to no longer play supporting roles and only take on projects where I was playing the lead character, because it felt like that was an important statement that was important for me artistically and socially, politically. So just because I happen to be a woman and happen to be a person of color, when I'm the lead of a story, it's an activist moment because we live in a world where we don't always want to pay attention to women and people of color. But I think early on in my career, in some of my relationships with endorsements, I started bumping up against that feeling that I had had as an actor, where like, you just want me in the room, but you don't want my voice. And that didn't work for me. And so those partnerships, we mutually walked away from each other. And I don't work with those companies that I don't feel like allow me to be in the room as a voice. And one of the most rewarding examples for me was when I was approached by Neutrogena to come work with the company. They knew that they wanted to really build out their cosmetics line. And so they brought me on because I have this kind of know-how in the beauty space and I spend all day in makeup every day. And so they brought me on to help build out their new relaunching of their cosmetics line. And they knew that a big part of that had to be inclusivity. But when they signed me to the company, there literally was not a foundation at Neutrogena that I could wear. There simply wasn't. I think the darkest color was, I don't know, tan. I think it may have been called tan. So when I first signed the deal and it was announced that I was going to be working with Neutrogena, there was all of this feedback on social media, but like, how could you possibly bring Kerry Washington on when you don't even have a foundation that fits her? What are you thinking? How could you do that? For me, it was important to expand the line because Neutrogena is one of the few lines where, you know, I just so believe in the science of the company, and I thought, wow, there are like people of color all over the world don't have access to this healthy skin cosmetic line because it's not being made for them, and that's not fair. And so it was really exciting to work with the company, and because they had done such a beautiful job of tracking through time every single social media response, we now, at our relaunch, are able to send a letter signed by me to every single person saying, thank you. Thank you for letting us know, even before I joined the company, and also after. Thank you for letting us know that you're a fan and that you were disappointed in us. Thank you for letting us know that we had to do better, and we're doing better, and here it is. And we had a really amazing opportunity. There were a handful of people who specifically had tagged me, like, I'm such a fan of hers, and I feel like she's doing the wrong thing. And I had a day where the company reached out and said, we'd love for you to talk to somebody in the cosmetics department about this new launch. Can we set up a FaceTime? They said, great. And then when they showed up for their FaceTime, we opened the computer, and it was me thanking them. And to have that experience of being able to say to a consumer, to say to a woman of color, like, you matter, your voice matters. I need you to keep using your voice in the world because look at the change that you created. I'm here to tell you to never stop using your voice because it matters. Like, that is so rewarding to me, and that wouldn't be possible without social media.
It's phenomenal. So the exponential good that can come from the power of people like yourself and the amplification, right, is the focus and the amplification of thought and numbers is amazing. It does have a flip side, right? It does. And you can, on a really cynical day, look at the underbelly of social media. Yesterday here at South by Southwest, there was an online harassment summit. And Monica Bickert, I think I'm pronouncing her name hopefully correct, Facebook's head of policy management said, Facebook gets 1 million reports a day of potential hate speech violations in comments, photos, and videos. And their priority first is to move as quickly as possible to address incidents, obviously, that could involve physical harm. At a panel yesterday on online harassment of women in media, Jamia Wilson of Women, Action, and the Media noted it's women and girls who are targeted by the most severe forms of violence online, and women of color experience both racialized and gendered harassment. She also said that she had to block people right before the panel started. Social media harassment is not just mean comments, it's anything from hate speech to doxing, threats of violence, revenge porn, false statements being posted online. There is this anonymity that exists, a recloaking, a remasking of hate that we haven't seen in decades, that is truly frightening. There have been studies that show that using a screen makes people less empathetic and more aggressive. What do you think is part of the solution? Is it counter messaging? Is it just part of the yin to the yang of the good of social media? What do you think about it? On your most cheerful days, what's your approach to
when
this?
I'm close to a therapy appointment.
Right, exactly. Or is this something that has fueled something so ugly and exponential that we really, really need to think about this in a task force sort of way?
Yeah, it's been a real learning curve for me. I remember when I spoke at the Democratic National Convention in 2012, I was not prepared for what happened afterward. Because even though I had been very active politically, there was something I said in my speech that really struck a chord and got picked up by a particular news outlet that I won't name, and played again and again on that outlet as a lie that the Democratic Party was perpetuating. Because it got picked up on that news outlet and really identified in that way, I became target number one for a lot of groups that were opposing that idea. And again, you don't like my dress? Great. You think my manicure needs work? Bring it on. You tell me you want to rape me and send me back to Africa? You get blocked. Like, that doesn't work for me. And it goes against it just crosses a line. Now, in a way, it's important that now I've learned since then, because I just used to block. Now I've had to learn, and Allison Peters and I work together on this, to identify repeated posts and people who are insinuating violence, because those I need to send to a security team. There's an ABC Disney security team that helps me with some of this stuff, and they keep track of it. Because some of it can be very scary. But I don't believe in responding, for me personally, because I don't think I have the tools to single-handedly transform somebody's ideology in a moment like that. Like, if you're really coming at me in that way, unless it's somebody that I know. I'm thinking about an exchange that John Legend just had with one of Donald Trump's sons that is epic. I love. But I tend to not, because they went to school together, or to the same school at least, I tend to not have one-on-one interactions with people I don't know, because I just don't think I have the tools to really make a difference there. For me, I block voices that are violent and aggressive and hateful, and then I just try to stay proactive about counter messaging that is filled with compassion and love and acceptance and inclusivity and democracy and justice.
I'm going to ask you one question, and then I'm going to invite people to file at the microphone in the center if you'd like to ask Kerry a question in a couple of minutes. So you and the Shonda team have written the book on live tweeting. And live tweeting, you seem so comfortable and casual in it, and it is this invitation to engage with you and engage with strangers in a way. And I think the genius of it is that it seems so casual, but can you talk to us a little bit about how that works and how that works behind the scenes, and how you've created a sort of structure around that?
Yeah, Thursday nights are intense in Shondaland. And actually there's almost, like, if I look at a schedule and I see that a really hard scene is scheduled for a Thursday evening, I'm like, are you kidding me? We can't do this scene on Thursday. I'm gonna be tweeting. So we are very committed to that community. And that kind of started, Shonda has always been very active on social media. She's a badass on social media. She will go after a person. And she's definitely one of my social media sheroes. And when before the show aired, Allison sent me an article about the most tweeted about shows before our pilot ever aired. And I was like, I want to be on this list a year from now, because I have small dreams. And she was like, well, probably to make that happen, I've told this story before, but I'll tell it quickly. She said, probably to make that happen, the whole cast should be on social media. And I was like, well, then I have to get the whole cast on social media. But I didn't want to be like the bossy star of a show. So instead, I very much Olivia Poped it. And I emailed Shonda and I said, could you ask, because you're the boss. So if you ask the cast to do it, and I knew how much she loves social media, so I said, if you ask them, they'll all join because they'll feel like they have to. And she was like, oh yeah. So she emailed the cast and said it would be really great if everybody could just think about being on social media. To this day, I know we would not have had a second season if it wasn't for social media. Our little
Really?
show had 6 episodes in the first season, and we had a grassroots movement. I mean, I had people like Oprah say to me, the only reason I started watching is because on Thursday night, all anybody was talking about on Twitter was scandal.
Amazing.
There is no way we would be in our season 5 today if it wasn't for social media. I am so indebted to this community.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for the audience?
Hi, Kerry.
Hi.
So my question, sorry.
No.
My question is your publicist like involved with any of your tweets and posts on social media? Like how much say did I have in what you post?
My publicist is here and was laughing hysterically as you asked that question. I have a dialogue with my publicity team because there are certain things that come up press-wise. I think the biggest way that we have conversations about it is that we were talking about this backstage. It used to be that as a celebrity, somebody would ask you to come somewhere to support something. But now, if you have a large community in this way, they just want you to post. So my publicist gets tons of requests every single day. Will Kerry post about this? Will Kerry post about that? So a lot of what we have to do is kind of vet what feels right and authentic for me to make sure that we're not just sort of, you know, they used to call it going to the opening of an envelope as opposed to, you know, just doing anything. I want to make sure that the things I post are things I'm genuinely, authentically connected to. So that's where some of the conversation is. They don't really structure or mold my voice on social media in any other way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Kerry. Big fan of yours. Couldn't afford the Prada bag, but I told my husband once you became a sponsor for Movado, go buy me a Movado watch. 'Cause he could afford that. So, my question is, one of the great things I love about your show is that you take on a lot of topics that are not otherwise discussed on certainly network television, such as your character having an abortion, talking about Planned Parenthood, racism, dog whistling in politics. You all did a great episode on that when they came out as the president's mistress. So I want to know if you have a role in some of those conversations, or if it's Shonda and her writing team that pretty much makes those decisions.
I have no role in that. Mm-hmm. That is solely Shonda Rhimes and the badass scandal writers. Right. They are extraordinary. They are extraordinary. And I will say it's not always easy. Shonda is not always met with joyous celebratory arms of like, yay, we're gonna show an abortion on TV. Like that is not always the reaction she gets. But she is such a brave and beautiful human being that she tells truth. And I'm lucky enough to be there to get to tell it with her because of her.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Kerry. My question for you is, because I feel that you're somebody in the public eye that's very mature and just has a lot of depth and understanding of the social space.
Good, my act is working.
You fooled them.
The specific question I wanted to ask you about, because even the conversation today was a lot about, you know, even the question that came up about online bullying and just all the different things that could go wrong on social media. I wanted to understand, you and I became mothers around the same time, and I know that this is probably something you want to have a dialogue about with your daughter. What are the tools in your toolbox, or what are the conversations or the timeline that you're going to have when it comes to parenting as a mother in the social space?
It's a great question. I mean, for me, it's one of the reasons why I don't post my kid, is because, and again, I love that people do. I respect it. I admire it. I even have moments where I really, really want to. It's like I have these itchy fingers where I want to post a picture of my daughter. It's so cute. And instead, I like send it to my shrink or send it to my mother. I'm like, look at this picture. Somebody needs to look at this picture. I have to get it out of my phone into the world, but not on social. So I get the desire to do that. But I want her to be able to make those decisions in her time. You know, I feel like she already has a lot to navigate in life, being the daughter of an actor and a former football player. Like, she's got a lot going on. So she should be able to kind of enter this world in the way that feels right for her. I don't want to make that decision for her. And I don't know. I don't even know. Like, who knows what the next iteration of Snapchat will be by the time she's allowed to have a phone, you know? Like, who knows? So I'm just gonna kind of play it by ear.
Do you get a lot of hate for that? Because I'm a digital and social media manager, and with my daughter, I've never posted a single photo of her online. And when we go to events and parties, it's just part of what everybody does. And I'm like, wait, don't do that. She was in the picture. So do you get a lot of backlash when you go places with her and you're maybe managing that a little bit?
I don't go that many places with her. And I guess people in my life know, like at work, people know, like, oh, well, let's wait till she's out of the, people just know, people around me know that that's how we roll.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kerry. I wanted to quickly ask, how do you balance the brand that is Kerry Washington with the personal activist, Kerry Washington, right? So you are an ambassador for some pretty iconic brands, and not everyone is going to agree with you. Not everyone is going to agree with your sentiments or your beliefs or what you're passionate about. So how do you balance that, making sure that your authentic self is there, but your sellable brand of Kerry Washington is still there?
It's a great question. Part of it for me is working with brands that get me. Working with a brand that knows that I'm a political person. So if that's not something that you can stomach at your company, you should probably make an offer to somebody else. So I think all of the brands that I work with really know who I am, and I've been doing it this way for long enough that this is kind of, that who I am as an activist and as a political person is so embedded into the larger Kerry Washington brand, so I try not to bifurcate it, I guess.
Preach. Love you.
Hi. I know you mentioned that the beautiful thing about social media is that it's personal and it makes your followers feel like they're literally following your life every day and you get a relationship with them. So these Instagram influencers, these girls that have all of this influence and these huge amounts of followers, what about when they start selling that audience, that niche audience, to marketing and it's more sold? And so it kind of blurs the line about what's contrived or what's curated versus what's natural?
Yeah, it's another great question. I mean, again, for me, it's the reason sometimes, that's the other big conversation I have with my publicist, is that sometimes, for example, for the launch of a cover of a magazine or for the launch of a movie, somebody will send me a list of ways that I have to post about it. And I always have to remind them that I have a community, that I have an audience, and I know how to relate to them. So I really appreciate the suggestion of how they'd like me to post, but I'm gonna post in the ways that feel authentic to me. Because if it turns out that I don't like something, I'm not gonna post about it. If it turns out that I don't believe in something, I'm not gonna post about it. And that's for, my posts are not for sale in that way. I do things that's not to say that I don't post about things that I get paid to do. I do. I get paid to be on Scandal, and I post about Scandal. I get paid to work on Movado, and I post about it. But unless I believe in it, unless I feel good about it, unless I feel like I can stand behind it authentically, then I'm not gonna post about it,
And we were just talking about this earlier today about when a cover comes out or a photo shoot comes out or there is a project that we don't.
Yeah, InStyle is so great in
We
this
don't
way.
have this checklist because what is so fantastic about somebody who has an organic social media following and sort of heartbeat is that you send somebody the magazine, you send somebody the PDF, and you say, it's really up to you to do what you want with it in your own community, and that's going to have the best result, hopefully. If you say, it's got to be this, this, and this, you already have dampened what makes social media so interesting, which is the genuine reaction and relationship that celebrity has with her audience. And so sometimes people post, sometimes people don't, sometimes people post multiple times, and it has to be about authenticity, and that's why you are such a social media star.
I hope, and I know we're going to get to you. I just want to say quickly that I hope that one of the takeaways today is also what an extraordinary editor-in-chief Ariel is,
Oh my God.
and how extraordinary InStyle deals with these issues. Like, to have had the conversation that we had about my cover in the way that we had it, for him to be so humble and compassionate and open and responsive, and for you to be such a listener into how each cover subject wants to deal with their cover. It's not common, and it's something that other editor-in-chiefs should follow his lead on.
Thank you. Next question.
So I'm Malika. I work with Ava DuVernay's Array, and I wanted to thank you for all of your support of Array. We really appreciate it. How has the experience of motherhood informed your craft and how you inhabit a character, if at all, or that you've noticed? And do you have a dream role?
My husband says that I'm funnier since I became a mom. And that, like, luckily I was pregnant when I did SNL, because that was really funny. And I think maybe that is sort of part of a larger, I think something about being a mom has made me let go of even more of ideas of perfectionism. Like, when you're pregnant, you're just not in control of anything. Like, you wake up every day and you're like, what am I today? And I think that really taught me a new sense of detachment. I think that's why they say there's no vanity in real comedy. So I think I was able to let go a little bit more in the process of becoming a mother and in being a mother. And a dream role, no, I really admire, there's this thing that Cicely Tyson, who is another one of my sheroes, she says that she wants her career to be like an endless mountain that she can never reach the top. And not because I want to be somebody who's unable to be satisfied ever. I want to enjoy every stop along the mountain, but I don't want to get there. I want to keep growing, So I don't have a dream role. I just want to keep evolving.
Next question.
You don't post about your personal life, and I hear fans say they like to see the more personal side of a celebrity or an athlete because it makes them more relatable or more human. So how do you defend and balance that?
Yeah, I think I'm learning that, because I do post a lot of me. I'm very personal in how I engage on social media. But I think what I'm learning is that the distinction for me is that I'm happy to post almost anything about myself. I'm not willing to post about my relationships with other people, because that's not solely mine. Like, that doesn't belong to just me. My relationship with my daughter doesn't just belong to me. It's our relationship. My relationship with my husband doesn't just belong to me. So if I put it out there, it feels like a betrayal of the sanctity of that relationship. If we had a joint account that we were making decisions together, which will never happen, but that would be a different story,
That's an interesting idea.
And I will say the two exceptions are my dog. I post her all the time. I pimp her out all the time. She's okay with it. And also my parents, my poor parents. I post about my parents and talk about them in interviews endlessly, because they're like willing to take it for the team. And I feel like they're adults, and they are, and I also feel like tabloids are really not interested in my relationship with me and my parents, so it's safe.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. I didn't think I was going to be able to do this. So I actually saw Common last night, and the first time I noticed you was in his music video for I Want You.
That
so
I directed.
So I'm kind of knocking two birds out with one stone.
Nice.
So
it was his birthday, I think.
They brought out a cake and everything.
Oh,
it was
nice.
great.
We'll just be talking here if you get
Yay. So my question is, my name is Anali Martinez, and I have a blog called The Nueva Latina, because I am a Nueva Latina. And so I posted a blog post about a certain presidential candidate that went viral in my hometown, and I got a lot of hate from it. And ever since then, I haven't wanted to write about politics. So I guess, what advice do you have for people that want to have a voice and want to share that voice, but how do you get over that fear?
Yeah. One of the things, this is so funny, but one of the things it's funny to me, one of the things I try to think about are some of the people that I really admire the most and look up to the most. And, on a different day or in a different context, it could be Michelle Obama, it could be Beyonce, it could be Barack Obama, it could be Oprah Winfrey, it could be Ava DuVernay. I think about those people, and I think about how many people hate them, and how many people say negative things about them. And I imagine them not being who they are based on that hate, and what a loss that would be to the rest of us. And that process, because it's so courageous for them. So that process helps me, number one, to not feel so alone, to know that part of stepping into your light and your true voice in life means you will bring out the demons. It's just how it works. It's the hero's journey. You will be tested, right? So to know that that's actually, and when I spoke at the Democratic Convention and I got so much heat, I actually remember calling the DNC and saying, I'm so sorry. And they were like, what are you talking about? They were like, the fact that this got picked up by that news outlet is a testament to how great your speech was. They are scared. They are threatened by what you said. So to try to kind of take contrary belief about it and to find ways to keep inspiring yourself knowing that you're not alone, think about all the journalists who have stepped out powerfully about candidates and have been hated, and just know that it's part of your journey. Collect it. Let it make you stronger.
Yes, thank you so much.
So, unfortunately, that was our last question. We've come to the end of our hour. Thank you so much, Kerry.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so
Have
much.
a great day.
Thank you so